Hello and welcome back to the Beats and Beans podcast. I hope you all had a really good Christmas and a happy new year to you all as well. Now, today's episode is one that I've been really excited about because I finally got a chance to sit down and have a coffee with George Holliday. Now, George Holliday is a music producer. He is someone that I discovered initially online through Instagram, and then I had a lot of conversations with him on there and on apps like Clubhouse, things like that. So we'd had lots of conversations and we worked with a lot of the same people, but we'd never actually met. Now, we did actually first start talking during the height of the pandemic, so kind of understandable. But finally, the time come where I headed down to Brighton for another good reason to go and see a gig. And that was a gig of John Seaton, who you'll remember from episode 2 of the podcast. This was his way of kind of finishing his year project of having 12 different songs done by 12 different producers and spread across the 12 months of the year. And this was an amazing way for him to finish up that project and just celebrate it with everyone. Now, George was one of these producers, as was I. Now, George had actually also roped in to play keys for John's show. So whilst I went down to see John and his show, I actually ended up seeing George play as well. And it was an incredible night. We had a lot of laughs and a lot of beers, which brings me on to the second part of this intro, which is, as you are about to see, I was a little bit hungover, a little bit under the weather, but I managed to get up early, get on the train, go to George's house, his bus, his studio, all at the same time, which will make a bit more sense in just a second. And we had a really good chat. We got into some really deep stuff. We had a good laugh. And it was just such a pleasure to finally meet him. I think you're all going to get something really great out of this one. So without further ado, here we go.
It's so good having you just in the bus to do this.
I can't believe it's taken me so long to come down and see it in all its glory.
It is. It's a treat.
What a place. It's everything I imagined it would be, actually.
Oh, really?
You know, you see something online on telly and I think, it won't be like that, though. And you get here and it just is.
People do always come in and they're like, oh, it's weird seeing like the set. Like if people, a lot of musicians have started from watching YouTube or from watching Instagram.
Yeah.
And I normally film from pretty much the same place. So like all the YouTube videos are from this angle. So like behind me here is the set. And it's really weird. You don't think of your home being a set, but people are like, oh, it's so weird being in the space, not just watching it on YouTube.
Yeah. We taste it. You had Channel 5 here, didn't you, or something? That was
Channel 5.
That was mad.
And Discovery Channel, yeah.
Was that... Because I haven't seen it. I don't actually have telly, which is quite sad, isn't it? I have Netflix. Yeah, what was that? How, like, why were they here?
It was £1 million motorhomes. Disclaimer:
Right.
It's not £1 million.
Where am I?
It's just clickbait for them. But they came and filmed it, did an episode, and they were. It was quite weird watching the show because there were celebrities in it. You know, like the royal family.
Yeah.
Where he's in his vest when he's just spilt. It's in Manchester, I think it's based, not as in the royal family. I think it's called Royal Family.
Oh, the show.
It's always on at Christmas or something. Jim, what's his face?
Yeah.
So he was on it, and
wow.
What's his name? Martin, the chef. James Martin.
Yep.
He was on it, and then the little guy who's like the Cockney guy who always presents shows like the cowboy. Cowboy Traders, something like that.
Oh, Rogue Traders.
That guy. He was on it. So it was really cool. I was just thinking it was going to be like a little Channel 5 thing because I don't watch Channel 5. I don't know what's happening over there.
No, too young for that.
Yeah, and then they approached and they said like 2 million people watched the last episode.
Oh my God.
The last series. So we're doing it again. And I was they asked me to do it, which was really nice. That was really cool. That was my first like TV experience in the bus. And then since then we've had another show filmed for a different project. For Discovery Channel, so that's coming out in January. So
that's so cool. But I get why, because it is just an unbelievably interesting concept and thing and play. And I think this is a good place to start. Now I'm here, the bus, right? I'm in a studio,
Yeah.
and I'm in a bus at the same time. That's a thing.
That is actually, and it's not the Beatles bus, which we were talking about last night with a few people, because the Beatles did have a bus way back. I think they made a film or something. Yeah.
Okay.
They travelled around. I can't remember the name of it, but everyone's like, "Oh, you're doing the Beatles thing," and I didn't know what that meant to begin with. And
I don't know what that means.
Turns out they did it, and they've just had a film out or a series out or something about.
Yes, I haven't seen that yet. I've heard.
I think the bus might be in
big
that.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Well, I didn't
we're
know
in a
you'd
bus.
stolen it from. If you're going to steal from anyone, make it the
Do it
Beatles.
the Beatles.
They done well.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's no one doing it, now in the same way that we are.
No, mate, this is so unique. Like, this is just. I mean, so was there method to this madness, or did you think that could be cool? Like, where did this come from?
It was a bit of both, I'll be honest. So I was a performing session musician for 8.5 years, doing functions, weddings. I was lucky to play with some people, did some great gigs, which I still have all the lanyards here for, just to remind me of sort of what happened and where that started. And I wanted to stop with the performing. I'll be honest, I just hit a point with it. It didn't feel like me anymore. And so I made the conscious choice to say, it's never gonna stop unless I make it stop.
Right.
So I was like, right, I need to find the transition, but I didn't want to give up the travelling. I loved hitting the road, in the vans, in the buses, whatever. I really enjoyed the travel, and even with my family 10 years ago, we did a American RV kind of trip, before me and my brother went to uni, just as a final kind of family together holiday, really, with us still living at home. And I just loved hitting the road, dad in the driver's seat, feet up on the window. We were listening to all sorts of music together, and we did some projects. I was filming. It was the first vlog thing I ever did, and made a little hour family doc, I guess, out of our holiday. And I just really, really loved that feeling of hitting the road, taking your house everywhere. So I was like, I think that's the one. But I didn't want to do an RV. It was too big. I wanted to do, a little sprinter van, transit van, something that kind of size. And then my mum, who, I always say this every time I say it, she's the most sensible person. She'll think about everything. She's a businesswoman. She knows exactly what needs to be thought about, and she's great for it. Found this online, and I remember exactly where she was sat in the kitchen, and she just said, I found this van, and it's not what you were looking for, but I've got to show it to you. And it's an old library bus. So anyone that's here in the UK will remember the old library buses coming around the schools, and everyone being paranoid that they were going to get in trouble because they hadn't read the book that they had previously, and it came round.
Yeah.
And it used to be on the Isle of Man, just doing laps and doing circles as a library bus. It was council owned. So showed it to me. We went to look for it. It was about an hour away. Went to look at it, and put a deposit down pretty much the I think it was the week after. It just happened really quick. It just felt right. I was studying the space, and I was like, there's so much I can do in this. And it required me to get a lorry license. I can now drive 30 tons.
That's so cool.
And it just went out of hand. So yeah, I'm very grateful to mum for trusting herself to show it to me, even though she thought it was a mad idea. It just, the vision just was there. And actually, the way it's turned out is how I imagined the layout in my head, because there was a guy who owned it, who did buy it from the council, but he only owned it for a couple of months before I bought it, and he was in his 70s, and he'd come up with this kind of hatch, this whole front bit. I know we're on a podcast, people can't see, but the whole front bit behind the driver's seats was just blocked off, so it seemed like such a waste of space. That's where all the windows are. It's where all the light naturally comes in, and where you're going to get your views wherever you park up.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things that I definitely wanted to change. And he won the lottery. He won £1 million on the lottery. So I put an offer in it that I think he wouldn't have accepted if he hadn't won the lottery. And I told him, I pitched my idea to the company that was selling it. They passed it on, and it was such a moment to show them the photos a year later of what we'd done, and because they felt quite involved in the journey, if you know what I mean. So that's how I ended up in a van, and it's full time. I live in here, and even before we started the podcast, you were not sure if I did live in it. So.
I thought I knew you could stay here, but I thought maybe it's got a house somewhere. I just thought it seemed like too good to be true that is the story, that you're here full time living it. But that's just amazing.
Yeah,
it's so
and obviously,
good. I love that.
With the way the world is at the minute, I haven't been able to travel quite as much, but it's still just an absolute joy. It's a different kind of space to work in. Studios are normally dark. They're normally no windows. It's so you've got windows in yours in the corner.
Yeah.
But mostly studios are dark places, and you're looking at the same four walls. So when you're creative, trying to, I do a lot of songwriting, so that space in particular, I feel like I just need that creativity. And when you're changing your views every day, or last year and a bit, I've been out in the countryside, just taking it all in, and it's just always a beautiful experience in the bus. I literally say it's the beauty of the bus. Whenever people are here, they're like, "Oh, I love doing this," or "This is really nice." I'm like, "It's the beauty of the bus. The bus does the talking." It's like, it is just the space makes everything else happen.
It's very inspiring. It's inspiring. I mean, not just creative. I mean, just what it's all about, and like what you've done with it, and where you've been, and it's an amazing setup and story. It just flips the whole studio music creation world just on its head, and it's just great. And I love stuff like that. People getting creative with their businesses, like it's amazing. Just
trying to find a different approach, and that was a big part of it as well. It was how if I'm going to make this transition from performing to full-time producer, how am I going to cut through the noise? Like, there's so many people doing it, trying to do it. The technology is good enough that everyone's in their bedroom making amazing music. And we've talked a lot about that. Is you can have a laptop, a microphone and a stand and whatever and maybe a little MIDI keyboard in your rucksack, get on a plane and go anywhere in the world and produce an amazing song.
Yeah.
So it's doable now. So if the technology's there, just don't fight it. Just join it and just use it to your advantage. And to be honest, my general everyday setup, minus the keyboard, which is hefty, minus that, it's all rucksack worthy equipment. Like, you can just take it anywhere. I'm not flashing a big studio. In fact, I actually describe it more as a songwriting studio or a production studio more so than like a recording studio.
Yeah.
Because, we have had small drum kit in here, but it's not ideal.
Yeah.
So, you're then looking at other spaces, even if you have to hire a room for a day. I've got all the gear on here to record drums and things. It's just, you just need the room, you need the space. We've done it in a storage container before, like one of those self-store huge warehouse buildings, and Ollie had his drums set up in there, and we made it work, and people never question it. I think that's the point. When you get to a certain level of like producing and getting used to a space, nobody questions it. And I'd love for people listening to this to go listen to some music and just see if you'd ever guessed that it was made in a bus, because I've never had anybody guess that it was. And when you're doing adverts, and we're doing a lot of adverts and sync and TV stuff at the moment. That's what we're trying to move more into that. Done a couple of adverts this year for like top 5 world companies, and I know the other company, we got down to the final 2 for one of them. I won't name who it is, but they used Abbey Road to do the other one.
Wow.
Or partly used Abbey Road. And I know that those producers are smashing amazing spaces and owning it and doing it really, really well, but then there's little George over here in the corner in his bus and competing and still hitting that level where it can compete. So I think that just shows where technology's at, and the rest of it's just down to the controls.
Well, it's something I wanted to ask you actually. I was planning it for later, but since we're there, like the future of music, what does that look like in terms of the way it's made? That's, we've obviously seen big changes up to this point, and I don't think that will stop anytime soon. And also the way it's listened to as well. I think that's a very different landscape. So I'm really keen to know what you think, what the next 5-10 years of music looks like for both ends.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably 2 ways to look at it. In terms of the creation, I would like to think that although it's getting more in the box, everything's in your laptop, although it's moving to that, and you can even produce songs on your phone now. You can get GarageBand on your phone and plug your guitar in and be on a train, record. It's mental, but it's amazing. And I hope that my hope is that people embrace it in a way that it's not just perceived as being in the box, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So although we can do it, taking your laptop into the middle of nature, or like sitting on a train and recording some guitar, like doing something wild and fun and using that to actually get out and about more than just being bedroom. I can do it all sat at my desk in my bedroom using it. I'd like to think that it progresses more in that sense, that people can be more creative like that. But I think we're kind of already there at the next 10 years of recording in terms of like the capabilities of laptops. The new MacBook Pros are just ridiculous. You can record 1,000 things at once on that, and it's fine.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. I can get up to 80 on this, and it's struggling like heck.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of really, the next 5 years, the landscape's already been laid out. It's how we're going to use it is the question. And I'd like to think people don't become more more I don't know what the word is. Just in their own spaces at home, just doing it just because you can, rather than needing a big studio space, and actually just think, how can I be creative with this? Put it in a bus, or those kind of things. How do you get out and about? In terms of listening, unfortunately, I think we are going to go more into the AirPod kind of stream. I have headphones, like the everyday ones. I think it's important for us as producers to listen on those kind of headphones to hear how the rest of the world is. But although they're getting better and better, I don't think people for the last 5 years or looking forward 5 years are going to be listening or wanting to listen on more like insane quality headphones. I think there's going to be certain niches of people that do want to listen on ridiculous good quality, but a lot of people are listening on laptop speakers and phones, and that's the reality. Is everyone's, Dre's bringing out these little Beat tablet speakers, and like they're really convenient. You can put them in your pocket, but when you go to the park with your friends, you're not listening on. People aren't taking their Bose rig with them.
Yeah,
like some people do, but on the whole, people are listening on lesser speakers. So I think as creators, we've just got to sort of accept that to some degree, but again, be creative with it. Like, how can we make that the experience? And we are about creating experiences. So how can you acknowledge that people are going to go to the park with their friends with their little speaker? How do you create that moment for them and make that moment more special for them? I think that's how the world's going to be, and I think we need to embrace that as creators and people that are listening to this that aren't creators. Don't change. Like, do what you would do, and let the creators kind of acknowledge and work with that, because
And then how do you feel about the way music's actually consumed? As a maker, I think the way people, not just with technology, I think just the behaviour and where music fits into a lifestyle is a bit different now. I think I can't remember the last time I sat down just to listen to music. Like, that was the thing I did. It's when you're working out or you're cooking or you're driving. It feels like it's become more of a background thing than it ever used to be. Which I don't think is a good or bad thing. I mean, that's just kind of where we are. And I find myself sometimes making music, I think, well, it's just sit on a playlist. It gets a vibe for 3 minutes. It sits there. It doesn't pull any punches. And, like, that's fine. That's a good thing. Like, that can work. Do you think like that when you write, when you make music? Do you think about who's going to listen to this and how? Like, where does it need to fit in? Do you know what I mean? I think the way people listen to music has changed.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And that's changed the way I make it.
Yeah, totally. I'm very conscious and aware of how people listen to it, more so, I think, than the average listener, in the same way that you will be. In that when you produce music, you have to be aware of that space of where it's going. When we work with artists, we've got to know where they want it to be listened to. And that has to then trickle down to the production. And I think that's a really important part of the process. I do agree. I think music is a lot more like it's being consumed in quite a
it was passive, isn't it?
Passive, yeah, that's the word I was thinking. It is passive, and I think that's because we could just have millions of songs at our fingertips now. When you bought an album, the reason you sat and dedicated to it was because you just spent a tenner on it. Like, you're gonna sit and listen and enjoy it, like you would buy a new pair of shoes, and you enjoy that moment when you first put them on, and you go out and you catch yourself in the window and you're like, yeah, they're a good pair of shoes. It's that same kind of thing, but it used to be that same kind of thing, but now we just have it all at our fingertips. So if you leave your playlist running and you hear 30 songs without knowing you've just heard 30 songs, it's not cost you anything, really. We all have this subscription, but it's not cost us like £10 for those 10 songs. So I think that's very different, and I think off the back of that, actually, it's trickled down to a different way that artists then create music. Last few years, I've been really trying to work out the market and make music for that market. For me, myself, when I'm releasing music, if I'd have had... So one of the songs at the minute is on 700,000 streams, and I think about that. 700,000 streams. If I put on a gig that had a 200 cap venue, would I be able to fill that space? And I just don't think I would. I think I'd really struggle to sell half those tickets. Not because people aren't interested, but there's not a commitment. Because if you bought an album 5-10 years ago, you were so committed to that artist that you were then going to buy the gig tickets to watch that album live one day. Like, that's the commitment level you were at. Whereas now, I'd probably say half of those 700,000 have been passable listens, where it's been in a playlist. People have put the playlist on. They've not put my song on to listen to. So that's changed the world quite a lot. That, a lot of streams doesn't mean a lot of anything off the back of it. Family and friends are going, I've seen your song's done so well. Like, how you must be buzzing about it. And I'm like, yeah, I am buzzing about it. I'm grateful about it. but I know that it doesn't mean anything in the same way that if I'd have sold 700,000 albums, holy moly, we're talking like Wembley, however many times over. Like, there's that's a whole different thing. So, the demographics changed. Like, it's a different world now. But I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, because on the other hand, as we've spoken about, music's more accessible to people. Like, it's easier for us to get our music out there without needing a record label and £100,000 to get the album out in the first place. We can just work in our own space, put it out there, and have access to millions of people. So the demographics changed. Like, it's all shifted, but we can't fight it. It's gonna stay this way. It's not. Spotify's not going anywhere. Apple Music's not going anywhere. We're not going to go back to see. We had a nice surge of vinyl for a while, didn't we? That was quite nice.
And now we've run out of plastic apparently, so we can't make vinyls anymore.
No, and that's died off a little bit, but physical, I think is over. We're not going back to physical anytime soon. It will always be there in some way, shape, or form as art, but it won't be there as like the primary source of listening. So
definitely. I think that's knowing all this stuff, being aware of it, and navigating that. I think that is a big part of being a good modern producer, like understanding the context in which you're doing it. There's more to being a producer than just sitting down and doing the creative bit, which is the best bit. And it's the bit you actually love, but to really make something of it, you've got to understand all these other parts, right? And you spend a lot of time, you've got to know how to be a businessman, you've got to know how to promote yourself, you've really got to understand the landscape of where your product, let's call it that, is going to be and be listened to.
Even as the artist as well. Like, you've got to be a business person, you've got to be a marketing person, you've got to, there's so many things on the list now. I think you probably fill up two hands quite quickly on every job you've got to do as an independent artist nowadays. I think that's important for us to understand as producers. Ask the questions. We're not going to be producing a dance track for someone that intends to stand with an acoustic guitar busking on the street. That just doesn't make sense to do. Like, it's our job to really work out what that is. And again, it's because the landscape's kind of changing and people can afford to record music, but there's so much around it that goes into it. Let's just say it's a few £100 to record an acoustic song in a studio for a day. Let's just say that. You've then got to spend a few £100 on marketing. You've then got to consider a budget for Instagram and Facebook, because they're stopping us from our posts from being seen by people that have actively said follow because I want to see your posts. You've got to pay for those people to see you. You've then got to think how much it costs to hire a venue if they want to do that gig. Then printing out CDs if that wants to be a thing, merchandise, like having that up front, expenses to and from studio, like food to eat for the week, on top of your house. But like, there's I could just go on and on and on. It's so expensive being an artist.
It's
wild. But at the same time, Abbey Road, when they were the studios at the time, were ridiculously expensive. So, on the other hand, like it's opened it up to people to make music, and really good quality music that can stand next to Ed Sheeran in a playlist, and you don't question it. So I don't know, man. I could talk about it all day, but it's changed.
I don't think there's ever been a better time to make music. It comes with its flaw. If you consider, if you really want to make it, yes, you're going to have to sacrifice some time and soul in spending too much time on Instagram and all that. Like, you're just going to have to do that. But it's a better place and time and it's in a sense easier than it ever has been. Like, if you want to go and make something and it's cool and tell the world about it, it's never been easier.
No, and for any businesses, I know this is Big Beats podcast and we're talking music, but think about any business. With the coffee, for example, 1,000 people spending £100 a year on you, £100,000 income. The thing with social media is that, and we're probably going to get deep in conversation now.
Here we go.
But the thing with social media is that everything is perceived as being like, you have to be the best person on holiday. You've got to look the best. You've got to go and do all of the activities to show everybody that you're having the best time. None of it matters. No. But that's the world we have kind of lived in. I think there's a big shift, actually. I was talking to a friend the other day that a lot of people are posting more everyday stuff now, rather than just the highlights. There definitely has been a shift, and I've noticed it. I think a lot of people have noticed it, and that's exciting because that's changed, again, the world. But any business that you're in, social media now has allowed you to connect with people, and I don't think it's impossible to build up a following of 1,000 people that will spend X amount of money on you. 1,000 people spending £100 on a year of you is doable. And that's £100,000 income. But let's just dial it down. You want to earn 20 grand a year. You just need 200 people spending £100 or 400 people spending £50 a year on you. That's not ridiculous to think about. And social media opens you up to that. And so does everything else that makes it affordable to start a business or start some kind of brand or just some sort of passion. Like, crikey, if you want to start yoga classes and you can do them online and you can have 1,000 people turning up to your bi-weekly yoga class, like, that's crazy. Even if you just charged $1, that's £1,000 coming in for like something that can be online for an hour. Yeah. And it's totally doable now. So the world has changed, I think, for the better. But I think on the surface, though, it feels like we're all being shafted in some way.
Yeah.
Like Spotify paying 0.003p a play. That feels shit. But they're a private company. They can do what they like, and they're choosing to give us money for the art that we've made off the back of them. Yes, they're also making money themselves off the back of it, but it's not like that bad. Like, we didn't have that 10 years ago. You had to spend 10 grand printing CDs and then had to shift them, and everybody had boxes of them sat in their bedroom 5 years later because they didn't sell out.
Been there.
And you've just got £5 grand sat under your bed. Like, we've all been there. Like, we just have just spent money in different ways, and we earn money in different ways, but it is more accessible. And I kind of celebrate that in many ways. So, and then it's just what you do with it. It's just what you want to do with it. What world do you want to be in? As much as you can follow the people that are like sitting on the beach in Dubai, you can just as quickly unfollow them and choose to follow who you want and be inspired in different ways. So
I think on the social stuff, like, I mean, that's how I first heard about you. And I think as an outsider looking in, like, you know, you kind of see all your posts and what you're talking about, and like, oh my God, this guy's absolutely smashing it. Like, this just looks cool. He's absolutely nailing this right now. And I'm envious and I'm jealous. And I mean, that's kind of how Instagram works, right?
Totally.
That's what keeps you on it. And I think you look at it and goes, that to me looks like a successful producer, someone doing his thing and absolutely smashing it. But how does that feel? Like, do you feel like a successful producer? You know, what does that look like to you? What do you think being a successful producer is or means?
I mean, I think being successful in any way, shape or form is a matter of looking back in time, asking yourself, what do you want to do in 5 years, 10 years? Like, what do you want to do? If I'd have said to myself even 5 years ago, you're going to be a full-time producer, you're going to be working on X amount of songs and have like 5 million streams behind you in a year on the stuff you've worked on, I'd be like, stop it. You're just gaslighting me. You're just making this like sound better than it is. So in that sense, like, I'm ticking the boxes of what I wanted to do. I mean, when I was a kid, I was growing up learning piano, wanting to play on stages, like doing that and like doing that as full-time thing. I did that for 8 years and like then moved on to the next thing. I never would have thought I'd be moving off the thing that when I was a kid I was dreaming about doing. Yeah. But life just goes on. Things change. Like your energy changes and the way that you look at stuff. And I think that's exciting to embrace. So I think being successful in anything is just being able to survive off it in some way, shape or form. Whether it's full-time, part-time, it doesn't really matter. If you're just managing to do it, I think that's enough. I don't think we need to put more pressure on ourselves than that. Because you never hit the point of being totally happy with it. No. Like, in the same way that you're saying that you were watching what was happening with me, thinking like, oh, successful producer, like, doesn't feel like that this side. You know, you have to really have a question where you have to question yourself, like, what is the thing that you consider being successful? I do think I'm a successful producer in that I'm doing what I dreamt of doing 5-10 years ago. But there's always the next thing. There's always the next thing you want to do. How is it going to grow? How is it going to expand? And I think you've got to be careful of that, actually, in life, in many different ways. Earning money, like working towards the next promotion. Like, anytime you work for those things, 10 years down the line, you'll look back and be like, I wish I was a bit more social. I wish I connected with a few more people. I wish I didn't worry too much about the money because I was too tired to spend it and enjoy it. All those sorts of questions. So actually, I just think being successful is being able to sit down with the thing you want to do every day and just enjoy it. And that's it. Yeah, the enjoyment bit, that's the key, isn't it? Because if you get into that place, and I've spent too much time there just wanting that next thing, and like you never have enough. You're always waiting for this moment where you feel like you've made it. It's like, I don't know what that means anymore. Like, but it's just like, you know, something's missing. Yeah. And until you get there, you're not really enjoying anything you're doing. You're just constantly wanting something else, and you're just not happy doing it. And that's when people stop. Totally. Like, that's when you give up on your dreams and passions, when you haven't, air quotes, made it.
got to enjoy that process. And it took me years to even understand that. You know,
Yeah.
only literally
What the process even looks like.
Yeah, what even is it? And it took good maturing over the last, I'd say, let's say 2-3 years, really working that out, and being like, there is no like, what am I waiting for? I just made it business.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing what I love doing, and that's epic.
Yeah.
Like, why am I not just enjoying this? Why am I not happy right now?
Just being in the
I'm
moment of it.
Focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah, and that's when time flies. And you know, the one thing I have really enjoyed about the bus in particular is that when you travel, there's no point travelling if you're then just going to stare at a laptop screen. And that's one thing I have. The main thing I've really missed in the last year and a half is, you know, it is stress. It looks great on Instagram. You're parking up in all these great spaces, you know, having your fire pit and stuff, and it is great. I made that sound like it isn't great. It is flipping great, but there's also a lot that comes with it. You know, when your water tank's empty, you've got to find somewhere, and sometimes, like in the UK, that's really hard. In Europe, it's easy.
Okay.
There's loads of different complications that you don't expect to have. Even just like having the time to hit the road and spend 3-4 hours on the road. I really love it when I'm on the road because I literally can't do anything else. I'm there, got my podcast on or whatever, or I'm making some calls. Like, there's nothing else I can do other than drive. And so I really enjoy that because it's the one thing I can do that forces myself into be in the moment, watch the world go by, and think about what you want to do when you pull over and stop and whatever. And I love that. That is what I've found in my life stops me from getting distracted with the flow of like wanting to just better and better and better. And actually just being in this space for a year and a half, as I noticed my mind has gone back to just smash it all the time, like trying to like work out what the next thing is, how to improve this, how to improve that, and not just be like, we've made a sugar load of songs this year and it's been great. Best year musically ever, to the point that actually next year I want to work out how I can be even more on the music and less on the business, because naturally with being busy comes a lot of like business shifts and great skills to learn, but will just pull you away. And any business person that has a successful business will always say they're not doing the thing that they started off doing, because they now have a team of people doing the thing that you loved once upon a time. You've just got to run the business now. You've just got to keep the machine turning. So I really consciously don't want to have another year like I've had this year where I felt like it's been project management. 9 to 12 every single day is my admin time, and I never get close to finishing the list. It just moves on to tomorrow's 9 till 12.
Yeah.
And that's great. I like it. I like having my Big Beats coffee in front of me. Promo. There you go. I like having that and enjoying breakfast, you know, a bit of yoga in the morning, like trying to force myself to slow down, which doesn't come naturally in the mornings. I want to get up and just get straight to it. But try and enjoy that time. Like if admin needs doing, it needs doing. So find a way to enjoy it. Go to a coffee shop. Just set up in here nicely that it's just enjoyable to just sit there and take it in. And so I think those are the changes I'm trying to actively make, is that every moment, any block of time that I'm doing something, none of it feels like a chore. Because if it feels like a chore, something needs changing, something needs shifting. And whether or not that's the environment, whether or not we've all done it where we shift our bedrooms around or apartments just to make it feel fresh. Like sometimes that's enough. Like let's just do that. And or I like shifting up my schedule. Fortunate enough that I can just shift it. If I want to do admin in the afternoon that day and want to get up and be creative tomorrow, I go to bed the night before excited for the tomorrow, because I'm just like, I'm going to get up and make music tomorrow. That's my task at first thing in the morning. And if you change that, you don't just feel like you're in a mundane kind of routine. And anybody can do that, even with your day-to-day of like 9 to 5 job. If you're in a 9 to 5 job and you feel like you have to do the same thing every day, treat yourself to breakfast on a Wednesday somewhere. Go to a drive-through, go to Costa and sit in there, read a paper for half an hour and just do something different. It will give you a week of feeling great, because you've just shifted something ever so slightly. So I'm just really enjoying that now. I'm like, how can I just keep shifting things but still get the same amount of work done, but just shift when it happens? No, I'm a bit like that. I need kind of like newness kind of gets me going. Like I hate falling into traps and routines too much, so I just kind of get... We're going to keep going. I'm just going to plug my laptop.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I realised the power's low and that would not be...
Oh, no.
I think you should keep this in the podcast as well. They're getting the full, like, we're just living life in the bus. It is what it is.
Off the solar.
Off the solar. Yeah, that's the thing that people love most about it.
I did not know. I think you should...
Music off the power of the sun.
Yeah, like...
Pretty epic.
It's all... Yeah, it's an eco bus. It's so bloody cool.
It is. I like to think of it as an eco bus, but at the same time,
Does it churn out a lot of diesel when you drive
It's a diesel bus, but actually, I've had this conversation many times over with people, like, in terms of your conscience, like, how do you feel? I have a conscience that it's a diesel bus, but then they're like, yeah, but you have not paid any fossil fuels towards your electric.
Yeah.
Your carbon emissions just in general are like super low on everything. Like, you're not really spending any carbon emissions when you're stationary for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
And even if you're driving
much,
around,
do you?
no, and even if I'm like traveling, I'm not driving like that much compared to how much carbon you put out in your car every single day, like just going to and from work or whatever. So yes, although it's a diesel engine, it's not perfect. There's no other way I can make it better. We don't have electric buses yet.
No.
And even then we don't have the power supply to like charge those buses. Like everyone with Tesla at the minute, it's still bad on the carbon because they're being fueled by coal's power stations.
Yeah, where's the electric coming from?
Totally. It's like the systems just aren't in, we're getting there, but the systems aren't in place yet.
Yeah,
but,
you can never do enough. You can never get it perfect. I don't think it's not about that. It's about doing your bit. Like, and it's funny when you see, like, it always comes with a lot of hypocrisy when you see, your what's the activist group? I've forgotten the name of them. Extinction Rebellion, these kind of things, and they're flying into places for these things and driving.
Like COP26,
which is, I think, yes, there's some mad hypocrisy with it, but I don't mind that. Like, usually doing something. Like, I'd rather focus my attention on people doing nothing.
Yeah,
like,
and the systems aren't there yet. The government haven't provided a way to do it.
Even your sheer existence contributes to the climate. There's nothing you can do about that.
No.
You've got to exist.
And we are getting closer, but until we've got the systems in place to really make that happen, we can only do our best with what we're given. So that's the way it is. Until we've got Tesla powered buses.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stick with my diesel for a little
while. Just do your bit, yeah.
But sorry, before we plugged in, you were talking about your daily routine and like shifting that.
Yeah, I like newness. Like I like having a routine, getting into it until it starts to not work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people who do like having a routine, but not the same one.
Yeah.
And so I'll kind of try something new morning routine for a couple of months, and I absolutely love it. And then I start to find myself getting to a point where I'm not enjoying it. It's becoming a chore, and I'm not looking forward to it. Like, that's fine. I'll just make a new routine. Like, there's lots of ways you can, have a great day.
Yeah.
So I'm just motivated by doing new stuff. I think that's been key for me. And again, I only realised that in the last kind of couple of years, and it's been you know what it is? It's journaling. Journaling has blown my mind at just noticing things about myself. And
do you make your own questions, or do you just write like a diary?
Yeah, no, it's completely blank. I just have a loose kind of guide in which I write down 3 things I'm grateful for, a general intention for a day, and I just write, just free write, to get my ideas out, whatever it might be.
Do you know what's one of my favourite questions for journals? And it was always one I got excited for, was because I used to journal in the morning, but about the previous day, so I had time to like digest what had happened. Or I would sometimes do it in the evening if I had a particularly stressful day. And actually, I haven't journaled for a while. But my favourite question was, what have you done today? What have you achieved? Like, what have you finished? And then, because I think a lot of people have this, where they get to the end of the day and they feel like they still need to do something. Like, they're like, I've not done enough today. I've not achieved something. And then you write them down and you're like, I've done loads. Like, just take it and enjoy it. Like, fine, sign off for the day. Yeah. So that was my favourite question. What's your favourite one to like answer and get into?
I do really enjoy just writing down what am I grateful for? What have I got? That's been so eye-opening for me. Because like for years, honestly, I think about the person I used to be. It's awful. I was very, very just negative biased in general. I wasn't ever thinking in terms of what have I got? What am I grateful for? I was thinking, what have I not got? What do I want? Why haven't I got it? Like, and I had such a bad problem with like entitlement. I just thought, like, went to uni, I was educated, the world owes me something now. Yeah. Like, what a dick.
Spent all this money.
What an absolute dick.
Yeah.
And so, that was a massive shift for me, just like working out, okay, what have I actually got? I'm like, I've got loads, so I don't need anything else. Like, I've got an amazing life and incredible people around me. I can't believe I just spent so much time not thinking about that. You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of sad, but you do your best. I'm there now. I'm kind of in a much just healthier mindset with that stuff, and that's just come off the back of journaling's been a big thing, meditating, just mindfulness, all these kind of things. And I'm not even entirely sure what the turning point for me was, where I went from like that person thought, okay, I need to change something here. I'm not sure how that came about, but something clicked, and I just decided I wanted to be a better person. Like, I just know
But for
I'm
yourself.
not. Yeah, quite selfishly, I guess.
Yeah,
but I knew
yeah,
that would benefit other people around me. I was
Totally.
like, I wasn't happy. That was what I wasn't a happy person, and I couldn't work out why. It didn't matter what I was doing, but my whole mindset was just completely wrong, focusing on the wrong things. And I think that was it. I was like, I just want to be a happier person. That was it. And it was a very, I mean, it's an ever, you never kind of stop learning about this stuff.
But I think that's a big moment, is to actually just be like, I'm going to be selfish and work on me.
Yeah.
Which, you're completely right, will benefit everybody around you. If you can work on being less of a dick for yourself, then you're going to come across as less of a dick to your friends.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And that is the hardest bit for people to get to a lot of the time. I remember as a kid, I was growing up and I was quite a bossy kid.
Right, okay.
In that I was quite headstrong. Like, I went to like Cubs, Scouts, all those things, and if we had to build a shelter, like, for us to get it done in the quickest amount of time, the most effective, so we can be sat around that fire making marshmallows, that was my goal. That was my mission. I'm like, this is going to benefit everyone. But obviously when you're a kid, like, nobody's thinking as deep as that. They're just thinking, sword fight with sticks. And it used to frustrate me, because I was thinking, like, the potential of, if we get this done now, we can be sat around the fire doing whatever we want for the rest of the evening. That's when I was always, I think, like, just always thinking ahead was and I still kind of am that now. But I remember, like, people, instructors, teachers, whatever, pointing that out to me, and I felt really conscious of it.
Wow, okay.
Like, even in my adult life, that stuck with me right the way through, of like, I don't want to be the known as the bossy kid, and I changed that as much as possible. And every now and then, it would slip out your mouth. You'd say something, and you'd be like, oh, that did come across a little bit bossy and whatever. But I think it was just headstrong. Like, I'm a Taurus. Like, I just know what I kind of want, and I go for it.
Yeah.
And that can come across as quite, targeted and like go for it. But when you, again, like, go for the whole selfish thing of, right, I'm going to work on that, I'm going to try and make that better, but it is who I am as well, so how do I channel that into a better side of me? Then it's just a matter of, like, managing it, I guess. It's like, it's in me, it's there, it's like comes from a place that I can't really change. And I think we all need to get to a place where we are happy with who we are, no matter what your characteristic is. Things will stick with you. Some kid will say something to you when you're like 8 years old that will stick with you for life. It just happens. We all have that thing. So but we also need to get to a point where we accept that doesn't mean it's not a bad thing. It's just where are you channeling that energy into? Yeah. That's when it becomes a bad thing or a good thing.
Yeah, the acceptance is
totally. And I think to make yourself better, you've just got to make peace with that in some way, shape, or form. And like, meditate. I do yoga, and it kind of feels like that's meditation at the same time.
It is, yeah. So
I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah.
I struggled actually just to sit and just meditate for half an hour. And I was watching a yoga video the other day, and at the end of it, they always, you always sit there and you just eyes closed for a few minutes. And one of the instructors said, I know for some of you this is going to be really difficult to just sit and not feel like you want to just turn it off now and get to your day, but just, if you can, just sit here for a few minutes. And something in my head when I really struggle with this, and I was very conscious for a moment of how hard I struggle to sit. And I don't think I'm alone with this. I think many people listening to this podcast will feel the same, where you just want to get to stuff and everyone's impatient. We live in a society where Amazon arrives in the afternoon if you order it at the right time, So that's the way we live. And I think being conscious of that is the only way you can then fix it, like grow from that. And hopefully, a year from now, I'd like to think I can sit in the morning and guilt-free do that without feeling like, oh, come on, George, just turn it off. You've got stuff to do, like get on with it. That's the next thing I'm working on this year.
So yeah, it's a very, very underrated skill to learn how to sit and do nothing.
Just be.
And be peaceful with that, and actually start to think of that as a productive thing. Like, but it's amazing and it's powerful, and that's been an amazing thing for me over the last couple of years. Like,
do you use like a particular app or anything for this?
I use Headspace.
Headspace, cool.
That's been really good. I mean, I pay for that yearly now, and I could not live without it every single day. I'm on what am I on now? 340-day streak or something.
Wow, that's impressive, man.
Yeah, no, it's got. It's got some nice little kind of things to keep you going with it. But what a powerful thing. Like, honestly, eye-opening stuff. You learn so much about yourself, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you just learning to accept it. And that is a huge thing, because it stops kind of what you're saying earlier. It stops the when you haven't got that acceptance, it creates tension and resistance, and you in your head, and you can't quite even necessarily work out what it is.
Yeah.
And that robs off on other people, and it's not good. But getting to that place of acceptance is so key.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And I think now we're kind of talking about it, I think what I remember being quite a clear turning point was sitting down. I think I was probably with Jump at the time, actually. We're working on we were on a band, doing some music, and I was like, I'm doing everything I ever wanted to do. Like, this is everything I set out to be, and I'm not happy. That's what is wrong with me. Like, that can't be, like, where do I go from here? I don't want anything else. Like, this is an amazing place for me to be, and I'm miserable. Something's not right. And so that was when I think...
Scary moment.
Yeah. I was like, because where do I go from here? Like, this is what I wanted, and I'm not happy with it. So what needs to change? I think that was when I started to actually kind of look into, myself, and it was affecting other people. It was affecting my relationship with my wife now, but she was my girlfriend at the time. And I thought, like this, you don't just work in music. Like, music, it seeps into all avenues of your life, right? And this is kind of where I want to get to and ask you about, like, how do you find working in music? How does it affect your relationships, and when you're not working in it, right? When I feel like maybe you're more susceptible to this than most, because you live and work in you have the bus, and so your life and music and work, there's a big crossover there.
Yeah, it's true.
I find that tough to navigate, like leaving stuff within the studio, and if I've got ideas and my wife's trying to talk to me, but my brain is somewhere else. I'm like writing a song in my head.
Yeah.
And that's not fair. That's not fair on her. Like, that for me is really tough. How do you find that?
Yeah, tough. I think it's you're right. It's a daily thing. It seeps into everything, every moment. Like, I'll be sat there having a coffee and I don't know, bang a spoon accidentally on the side of the wall and be like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Where's my mic? I carry a mic in my bag, a Zoom mic in my bag everywhere, just for those little moments, just to capture them. I think the biggest thing that's been really helpful for me is actually finding a way to manage those moments so that the moment isn't lost, it's captured, but that allows my brain then to go back to what I was doing without having to log it. And I'm the same with everything. Like, my to-do lists, I speak to Siri all the time. Siri literally is my best friend at the moment.
Wow.
And I'm in the car and I'm like, hey Siri, remind me to... It's just going to start now.
To pipe up.
remind me to do X. And it's because I've just thought about it, rather than like keeping it in my head and it just feeling like, we've all had that feeling where everything stacks up and your head's gone fuzzy and you just like, I've got so much to do and get panicky. I just give it to Siri, like, she just keeps it there. And then when I sit down at my 9 to 12 every morning, open my reminders list, and that's my to-do list. And on reminders, you can tick it off as well. So when you tick it, it just disappears. So that for me has been a really great way to so-called manage that head space of, like, when you're living it all the time, you could be out for a meal and you're like, oh, I need to do that, rather than just like stressing and think about it. I just say it to Siri, like, have it in my reminders, and then it's gone straight away from my head, because I can allow it to, because I know I've recorded it somewhere, that it's not going to be forgotten forever. And I find that really helpful, even with like songwriting stuff, walking along, voice notes are open, singing a little melody. Rarely actually do I go back to those melodies and turn it into something. Yeah. But it's there if I need to. Or on my notes, I've got a folder of just lyric starters, and they're just titles, and there's a new note for every title. Right. So that one day when I open it, I can go straight into writing that into a song. But they're there just in case I need it. And again, don't always tap into it, but I think it's just a matter of, to manage it, it's just getting it out of your head, finding a way to like record it, log it, and then it's just there. And even with like my calendar, if there's something I know I need to do, rather than thinking I need to do this, I literally book in time. I will add an event and make it into a block of time that I can then move around if I can't do it at that time. But generally, I know that tomorrow, I need to do my finances for my tax. Like, that just needs doing. So rather than just having it in my head as a thing to do that we obviously keep putting off over and over again, it's just scheduled in. Like, as the thing I have found difficult is that you don't have a manager or a boss telling you you've got to do something at a certain time. That's really hard as a self-employed, not just musician, just anything. Yeah. So if you haven't got a manager scheduling in time, you've got to do it yourself. You just got to schedule in that time. So that has all helped me just basically get it out of my head. So I found that quite good, and then it allows me just creative mind space to just think in and get ready. And actually creating a routine, I think, is quite helpful. Like 9 or just before 9 till about 6 is when I aim to finish at 6, but sometimes it overspills like an hour or whatever. But if you've got plans in the evening or you've got stuff you want to do, that helps me stick to that. If I don't have any plans, inevitably I'm going to run over till like 9 o'clock in the evening. But if I've got plans to see family, friends, girlfriend, like if I'm going to go out for a meal, like that helps me keep in the rhythm. And actually now I've got to a point where I don't really start thinking about song ideas beyond titles and maybe a rough melody. If that happens, then I use the tools that I was just mentioning. But generally, my creative time is blocked into a certain time of day. My brain's actually started to just know it's creative time, and I haven't felt like that's restricted me. Some people I think would find that quite restrictive, but I found it quite productive to know that at a certain time every day is my creative time. And it's just all of that's just really helped.
Yeah, being disciplined. And,
the discipline has really helped.
I think being your own boss is it's a blessing and a curse. But as long as you are really being your own boss, I think that for me I felt that was a good excuse for me to not do stuff and get lazy and things. But the more I thought about it, I was like, no, I need to
stay on it.
Yeah, I need to actually be what a boss would be doing. You need to have this, be accountable. That is actually surprisingly tough, I think. But at
the same time, it's not hard to like bring in the tools to make it happen, if you know what I mean. It's just having the conversation with someone that's been there and done that. I had to do it because when I was travelling, driving around takes 4 hours, so like that shortens your day, or you've got to have put aside a whole day for travel sometimes. So that affects you. I've got to be really on my scheduling to make sure that yes, I'm travelling, but I'm also getting stuff done. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. I had to be really... I wasn't like being strict on the timings. I was over-exaggerating times of like, if I think something's going to take 6 hours to do a travel from like Spain to France, then I would schedule in like just a whole day because something could happen, or anything. Like just over-schedule time for yourself. If you've got a few emails to do, put in an hour. Don't just put in 15 minutes for it, because that gets stressful when you're like, it's taken half an hour and you only had 15 minutes. Now you're a quarter of an hour behind your schedule, and it just stacks up. By the end of the day, you're 2 hours behind. It's like a doctor's surgery. You're like hours behind. Yeah. And then it gets stressful. So if you just overcompensate, you're ticking off those things earlier. You get onto the next project. In your mind, you're buzzing. You're like, I could take 15 minutes break now. Just go have a coffee or whatever, because I'm 15 minutes ahead of my schedule. You feel good about it. Yeah. Or you just get ahead and clock off a little bit earlier, or just get onto tomorrow's stuff. And just, it's just all about I made a course called Building the Life You Want to Live off the back of everything I've learned from travelling and building these things. Okay. And it launches soon with The Power of Indie.
Oh, awesome.
Nice. It's going to be the first course that they launch, and it's £29, and it's a series of videos with, I've done a hand booklet of all these kind of like weekly scheduled things you can do, show the tools that I use, I show my calendar and how I do it, so that people can make their own version of that thing. Wow. Because once you get those things into place, you literally can just build the life that you dream of having. It's really weird when it clicks. I remember thinking, I want to be a full-time musician. I was like, well, there's so many things to do, so I'll just start booking them into my calendar. 4 hours for researching record labels, 4 hours for like listening to music and also doing the research on those artists. Where are they based? What are they doing? What's their story? How do they start getting momentum? Just schedule 4 hours in for it, and then 4 hours of researching record label. That's an 8 hour day. That's day one done of being a full-time artist. And then just keep scheduling your week like that. Yeah. And it's amazing how quick you can essentially make yourself full-time on stuff that needs doing. Yeah. Made the course.
What's it called?
Building the Life You Want to Live.
Love that. That's great. It's so sad that more people don't do that, isn't it? I'd tell you where I'm at right now, which feels good. I think in 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, I've got so few regrets, right? Because I've tried stuff and I've found something I want to do, and I've gone and done it. Like, that feels great. I have very few regrets, and there's nothing worse than speaking to your elders, or people that have they've had careers, have done the thing, and they've not chased down a dream, and you can see regret in their eyes, and you can't get that time back. No,
it's true.
So while you're young, and it's amazing world out there, you can do so many cool things, especially you can do anything you want, anything. And it's such a shame that more people don't do that.
I think we wait for a sign, or we wait for something to happen, and musicians listening to this can relate to record labels. Everyone's waiting for the record label to come knocking on the door. It ain't gonna happen. Sorry to be a spoiler, but you've got to go and chase them. If you want it, you've got to go chase it. It's the same with anything in life. If you want to travel more, literally nothing is gonna just hit you one day and be like, okay, today's the day, pack your bags, we're off traveling. You've got to start booking those ferries. You just got to commit to something and be like, right, I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm going to book the flights, and there's my deadline. I've got to make everything happen between that. Suddenly, then you'll start researching all the documents you've got to do, all of the passes you're going to need. Like if you need a visa, don't book your planes before you got the visa, because that can take ages. But you know what I'm saying? It's like all those things start just clicking into place. Then you just need that one thing, and I promise you, it's not coming to knock on your door. You've just got to book it and commit to it. And it's like, we're trying to look at different jobs for my partner in a minute, because when we go travelling again, she wants to hit the road with me and do all those things, but she needs a remote job to do it. And the reality of it is, and hopefully she won't mind me saying this, but the reality is that's not going to just be there waiting when that change needs to happen. It's like, now is the time to make those changes. And you know, so we're looking, trying to find something for her that's remote. And I think that in itself is a good example of, if we want to travel, there's not going to be a ferry sat there waiting for you when the time is to go and do it. And it's the same if you want to have a different job. There's not a convenient time to leave the job you're currently at. No, there never will be. It's like that dreaded conversation you have with someone because you've got to just, I don't know, say some bad news, or there's never a good time to do it. So until you just commit to it, and sometimes it doesn't feel nice. Like, it's not a nice conversation to have, but it's delaying. It's still gonna be there. So I think there's quite a few things that like that in life that you realise once you've done the one thing, throughout the rest of your life, you'll be like, okay, I know that I just need to do it. I need to commit now to build the life I want to live. I've got to take that plunge. And
I was so, like, you're saying earlier about just waiting for it to happen. That was fresh out of uni. That was me. Like for a long time, I was like, I've done my bit now. Worked hard. Yeah. Now I'm ready to reap the rewards. That are suddenly going to
knocking on in my email,
and it just doesn't happen. And the world doesn't work like that. And that was such a wake up call for me, realizing that, oh wait, I've barely started. Like, it sounds harsh, but I did have to give myself a bit of a kick up the arse and think like this, like, the world does not care about me one bit. Like,
sadly not.
It just doesn't, right? And the list of people in it that really do genuinely care about you is quite small, which I just think is a good thing.
Yeah, agree.
You are just going to have to make stuff happen yourself. No one's going to come along and do it for you, because everyone's got their own stuff going on.
Yeah,
like,
it's too
we all kind of talk and help each other out, but to actually really do something, like, it's got to come from you. And that's a massive wake-up call for me.
Yeah, and it's a scary reality for a lot of people, but I think once you just jump that first hurdle, and it doesn't have to be big, like, you don't have to make a massive life change, like, just start small. Just be like, okay, well, until I can start getting up at 7 a.m. every day, I'm not going to be ready to start running my own business. Like, let's just set, like, a really relatively simple boundary. And it's flipping hard waking up at 7 every day, but, like, just that's the first little step of discipline. Like, do that. Or say, I'm going to go to the gym twice a week. Just make it happen. Just start small. Just start with something that is really easy doable, and you'll feel really good when you get it, and then you'll get the confidence to just move that thing to something bigger and bigger and bigger, and you get there. Like, I was terrified of driving this bus around. It's flipping huge, 10 meters long, 7.5 tons.
It's a beast.
It's a beast.
It's not a small van.
It's a lorry, and I was nervous. Now I'm totally fine with it, but and even now, I've not moved the bus too far other than across a field here and there. But it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking when I hit the road. In fact, I went to go for an MOT, and I was quite nervous about it. Like, people think, oh, you've been living in it for 3.5 years, it'd be fine. It's just, you're only going for an MOT. No, I get nervous. I'm like everybody else listening to the podcast, you get nervous for it, and there's never a convenient time to face that fear. Yeah. So, started doing it, and 5 minutes in on the journey, I was like, oh, I really missed this. I really, I'm glad I faced that fear and went and did it, and
the anticipation was worse than the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Every single
time. And the longer
time
you keep that going on for, the more it builds up. Yeah. And finally, if you do take your time, you go, oh, right, okay.
It's so true. And I think people make the mistake of, like, trying to just think too big too soon. And says he sat in building a bus rather than like a little van. But I think that was a lot of mental thinking time for me. I spent, a year and a bit, like, really thinking what is going to be the next part of my life. And I didn't need to spend that long contemplating doing it. I think you just got to jump out and do it. But it is scary. Like, we're all human. Like, things are scary. Nothing feels easy, especially now. Nothing feels easy. So even though something can feel big, the reward is going to be so much greater. The greatest things in life are the other side of fear. And I think that in itself as just an approach to anything that you're worried about is hard, but the best way to look at it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to like convince people other than just have conversation as well. Like, just keep that conversation going. As soon as you're surrounded by people that are either going to support you, or you can start hashing out that idea. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were saying that 10 conversations on average. I think it was a friend of mine, Dave. We were talking about setting up a new business or an idea, or launching something new, or just doing something new in your life. 10 conversations, he reckons, is about what it takes to actually go from initial idea through to it being an actual conceivable project, something that could actually happen.
Yeah,
I found that interesting because, me and you have a conversation today, for example, about something, then I'll go and speak to 9 other people. I don't think 10 people specifically, but on average, you then have that conversation. Someone comes up with an idea, and then that becomes like the name of, you figure out the name of what that thing's going to be, and then the next conversation is like, a bit of the logistics. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And you go, no, I haven't. And you go away for a week, and then you're in the pub the next week, and you start that conversation up again. And it just, when you start having the conversations, things happen. And I've always found that, and I really like, that's probably the thing I take forward the most is, I have built an American school bus, which is a whole different conversation. We won't fit it into this, but I've bought an American school bus off the back of people loving this bus so that people can have the experience. Then I was like, they're big vehicles. People can't drive them around. Like, then I was thinking about getting smaller vans, going back to the original idea I had 5 years ago what was meant to be this. And just started having the conversation. So it was out of my head. And then people were like, that's a great idea. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And I've just secured funding in 6 months-ish, within 6 months, to make that happen. A decent amount of cash that I never thought I'd have access to through a friend, someone that really believes in the idea. And it all comes from putting it out there and having a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And something that seems like a silly idea can then carve itself into a great idea. And then also there's support around you to make it happen, whether you need funding, whether you need a business manager or someone that knows that part of the industry, just being like, I'm thinking about doing this. Do you know someone else that is in that field, in that industry? And it's amazing how quick things happen.
Yeah, that is what this is all about. Like, just talking. It's magical thing, isn't it? Just speaking. And a good idea is useless until it's out in the world and doing something.
Totally.
Like, if you had this idea, but it lived just in there, that means nothing.
Yeah, totally.
Get it out. Most people aren't going to shoot you down. It's
not at
they
all.
Can contribute. Like, the amount of ideas I've had from other people about all the coffee stuff. I'm like, oh my God, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Like, so many people are like enthusiastic about it and coming to me with stuff. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is
and
great.
even on a local everyday level, if you're just thinking about making a change in your life, just talk to friends and family about it. Because then the ideas actually become real. And it might even just be like, I'd really like to start getting up earlier. Like, I'm sleeping in till 10, 11 every day. I get up and I feel awful about it. Even just having that conversation, some people are like, I've just got this new app on my phone, and it slowly wakes you up or something like that. It makes waking up so much better. You're like, oh, cool. You've had that conversation, you download the app, suddenly you start. I know that sounds silly and really obvious, but it's something that I don't think we all do.
And I think that really speaks to the importance of surrounding yourself with good people that allow that to happen. Because if you're the sort of person, you have these ideas, you say them to your friends, and they do shoot you down, like, mate, it's never going to work. That's not really people want to be hanging out with.
Yeah, change your friends.
Which is hard and maybe easier said than done. But
totally.
Yeah, they're going to hold you back. Like, surround yourself with good people, a good support network.
Or at least add people into your life that can add that. You might have friends that don't speak on the boys back home. None of them are in the music industry,
right?
But they're great to hang around with, and I miss them every time I'm traveling. It's so many months between seeing them, and I do really, really enjoy seeing them. But I had to also have friends around me that get the music industry and get what it's like to be in this world, so you don't feel quite as lonely with it. So sometimes it's just adding them in. It's not removing your friends. No, it's just adding them in,
limiting Lucian. So I think we'll start to wrap this up now. I just wanted to touch on something you said just before I went for a wee. You're talking about how it can get quite lonely doing music. You can feel like an island sometimes. Totally relate to that. How do you navigate that? How do you deal with that? You know, what's your solution for making it feel less lonely, or at least, you know, what's that experience like? How, because you work here with artists, right? Like you have people. So yeah, what does that feel like?
It's shifted quite a lot for me actually recently, because it's been a busy year. What I'm actually embracing for the first time ever is intentionally spending more time on my own.
Okay.
Which I never thought I'd do. I'm definitely, I think I'm half and half introvert, extrovert. In terms of social.
Ambivert. That's a thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Ambivert. You just go flip between sides.
You're both. How glad you to know there's a word for that now, because I was like, I'm not introverted. I'm not extroverted. I'm ambivert. That's a real thing. Like ambivert. Sometimes you want to be the most social person in the world. You want to surround yourself with people, and the next day you want to shut yourself off and not see anyone.
That is exactly me. It sounds like it's you as
ambivert.
well.
Ambivert. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm just embracing it, and it's. I really really love working with artists, and I want to continue doing that. But in the same hand, I haven't then appreciated, enjoyed, and strengthened myself on being alone.
Right.
And creating music on my own. I think it comes from the last couple of singles. I haven't released singles for years, done anything, and to the point where people are like, "Oh, you started releasing your own music," and I'm like, "Well, I did it a long time ago, but not professionally." And now I'm seeing it as like I'm professionally releasing music. And the last 3 singles, Feel the Enemy, Ivory Eyes, it's been the first music I really truly have felt is what's in my head and what it sounds like in my head.
Right.
For me, sat here with my piano, and I want to do more of it. And for that to happen, I need to spend more time on my own, because those sessions, to really hit that mark, it doesn't happen when I'm with other people, and I'm aware of that. I can put my little sprinkle of stuff into that session, but for me to just really make all those decisions and just do it how I hear it, which is a lovely process, because you don't end up doing things to conform to pop music on the radio now. You just don't.
Yeah.
You just do what you think feels good, and then hopefully other people do as well. Which, you know, by the odds of how many people are on this planet, there's going to be people that will also have a similar thought process to you or consume in the same way.
Yeah.
So I'm going through this phase now of embracing the loneliness and spending a bit more time like cooking a decent lunch. I know it sounds silly, but rather than just like grabbing something really quick or just banana and a coffee, I just spend half an hour making some food, sit down, put on a podcast, or just spend just that half an hour having that moment to yourself. I found is actually helping with that lonely feeling.
Right.
Which is weird, because it's to combat being lonely, you're telling me you're making yourself more lonely, and I'm like, yeah, it's really working. And I think the reason it's working is because I'm valuing my time more.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. That's all it comes down to, is I'm just like, okay, well, I've built this great space. Yes, I want to share it with other people, but actually I just want to do what I want to do within that time as well, rather than just trying to fill it with other people, which I really enjoy, but it's really exhausting. When you have people here overnight or for a week of recording, you're hosting as well as being a producer, as well as being a friend, as well as being like having all the business talk. And it's really, I get to the end of that week and I'm like, bang, done. I'm like, why don't I just try and make more music that I can make an income from, that allows me to also have that headspace just for myself. And actually it comes back to like being a little bit selfish, like that helps the whole process. And I think as well, you're right, you mentioned earlier about it's all in the same space. I never work on my bed down at the bottom. That bedroom space is my space to chill and relax. And sometimes I even just have my dinner on my bed, just because it feels so much of a like detached from work space, rather than sitting on the sofa, which I do for work as well. So just creating those different spaces I find really, really helpful. I also get up every morning, have a shower, and get dressed as if I'm going out somewhere. Make that effort, even if I know I'm not going out somewhere. That really helps, because that's just like mentally committing to myself again, rather than just having a pajama day, which I've never been a pajama day, but I know people that are, and it's less productive and you feel a little bit like a slob after a couple of days. You just kind of, I think mentally that's quite damaging to do. It's great for like an ill day, or, you know, if you're having a sick day, like that's totally fine.
For as hungover as I am right now.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's a different context in it. Do you know what I mean? Rather than like, oh, it's a Wednesday, I'm going to work in my lounge stuff. Like, that's different, I think. So just having that commitment. But there's no denying it can be lonely. I definitely deal with depression, and I deal with it more in the mornings.
Okay.
So when I wake up, especially this time of year, when I wake up, I'm more than happy to close my eyes and just go back into my little dream world cozy because I don't have to then deal with the day. It's not because I've got anything scary that day, but mentally there feels like something I'm dealing with every day, that you get up, and I find that really difficult. So the whole Instagram thing that you mentioned of like it looking great, most mornings, if I'm going to be real with myself, I'm sat pulling myself out of bed, fighting this feeling of I'd rather just close my eyes and go back to a dream world that's not like here. And that sounds quite sad. It's not as deep as that sounds, but it's something I definitely fight, and I feel it more in the mornings. And it took somebody else saying, I get depressed in the morning. Yes Theory. I don't know if you'd watch Yes Theory on YouTube. 3 guys built a YouTube channel about facing your fears, seeking discomfort, like
Okay.
they've built an amazing community of people that just get together and just cross barriers together in many different ways. Not like bad ways. It's a really like innocently great group. People get together and cook meals and whatever. And one of the guys, Amar, is the happiest guy on camera, but they also are very real on camera. And he says, I am so depressed in the morning. And it really hit me. I was like, first time I'd heard it from someone else describe how I feel first thing when I wake up. And he is the happiest person at the same time. So I found that really weird to hear him say, I deal with depression, and particularly when I deal with depression, it's in the mornings more so. And I'm the same. I never feel it in the evenings, really, unless I've had a hard day or something. But we all, I don't think that's a characteristic. That's just a good day and a bad day. But mornings for me is like the real lonely time. And if I'm with other people, like I can get up easily. I feel fine.
Yeah.
Like it's fine. But if I'm on my own, mornings is the worst time for me. I don't know about you. Have you got like a particular time that you?
I've never thought about it that way. I don't know. I don't think so. I think seasonal more. Like the winter is just a harder time of year in every way. Like getting up out of bed and getting up early and having a routine and be motivated. For some reason, in the winter is just so hard. It's so easy for me to hit snooze and I'll be in bed till like 10, 11. Like that happens. And then I feel awful all day because I've done that. And I've not even woken up and I've let myself down. Like that happens a lot.
Yeah.
So I've never thought about it in those terms, but I actually find the evenings harder after I've stopped working.
But to accept that your day is done in terms of work.
Either, as in, have I done enough? Have I actually achieved enough today?
Yeah.
And it's also when I stop working, I sit down, and here's my big problem at the moment. I don't have any hobbies that I haven't turned into a business or a thing. So I'm getting to the evenings, I'm like, what do I do now? And all I've got is, Netflix, your phone. I just fall into this whirlwind of just not good things to do. Like Netflix on, my phone's on.
Sure.
Like scrolling aimlessly through stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing? And if I do that all evening, I won't be able to sleep. Like, definitely the evenings are harder for me.
That's interesting. I wonder if there was a few changes I made recently in terms of what apps are on my Facebook's been removed from my phone. I only check that on my computer if I need to check it, because again that's an easy scroll. Instagram is a really easy scroll, but I've removed a lot of people, not that I don't like I've removed people that I do actively like, but I know that their content isn't good for me to follow, or it's too addictive. But I will actively search people and check up on how they're doing, but I don't follow them.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that I don't want to see what's happening in their lives. I just know that there's so many people that we follow, that we scroll through, that actually scrolling through that content aimlessly isn't benefiting me in any way. And actually I'm not bothered about seeing what they're doing in that moment. I'd rather choose the time to go search their name and follow it. And there's probably people that have taken offence to be like, George hasn't followed me, like what a douchebag. But I would always love to them to know it's not because of them. If anything, it's kind of more special that I'm choosing to follow up on those people and to see what they're up to and like some of the posts and comment and send them a message, even if I don't follow them. I think I'd rather people do that to me than just follow me because they just have forgotten to unfollow me or just aren't interested in what I'm doing at all. I think that's worse in a way. So that was a big change for me, and that helped me in the evenings to the point where actually, I'll do a little scroll for a couple of minutes and I'm like, I'm bored. So I just put my phone down. And then even if I'm watching Netflix, I'll actually just sit and watch Netflix, which rarely happened for me. I was watching Netflix, but like you say, phone was out. Doing stuff. We all do it.
Being actively present with what you're doing, it sounds so easy. It's like you've put Netflix on,
Yeah.
sit and watch it. Like take in what you watch it. Sometimes fall into the trap of just this odd mind state of just nothing's really going in. My mind is somewhere else. Like that's the good thing for me. I think like this is what I'm quite happy about. Where I'm at like right now, things like that. That for me is kind of me at my worst, right? And 5-10 years ago, that would be me at my best. Like I've come such a long way.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
Like I could almost, I'm not going to completely outright say this, but I could almost say I don't really suffer with depression anymore, which is mind-blowing
Wow,
thing,
that's so-
right?
yeah.
For me to have a
Huge achievement.
low day, I have a low day.
Yeah.
It used to be a low 6 months of just like not wanting to get out of bed, wondering what on earth like, should I just pack in the music, go get a day job? Long periods of time like that.
Give me 3 things that you would say has helped make that change. So
Meditation's absolutely up there, 100%. I think plucking up the courage to actually say something. Like my wife is incredible, like she's an unbelievable person, but I never spoke to her about anything like that, like what was going on for me. She'd always ask. I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Like nothing. I'm fine. Like, and that time after I said I'm fine. So actually, just talking to her about stuff, about life, like that was magical. And from there, talking to other people about it, like I've only recently discovered how fucking great a person Sam Jump is, right? So I can talk to him about anything. Not even for 10
worked with him
years.
for 10 years.
10 years. I know, 10 years. And I've never realised how good a listener he is. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
And how easy it is to talk to about stuff. And because I'd never used to do that with him.
Or at least when you've when you've had those moments, you just weren't conscious of those.
No,
attributes
definitely wasn't. So, yeah, talking in general, just to sum it up as that as a point, like this, which is why I think I love doing this, because I know how good it's been for me, and so for other people to see it, I think is helpful. Talking meditation. Third, I do look after myself physically more than I used to. So maybe I think that's generally just working out, yoga, those kind of things.
Yeah.
That's helped. I changed a lot at once. This is where it's hard for me. I changed my diet, started meditation, started working out. I'd done a lot of things at once. So I've been asked it before, and I found it really hard to pinpoint what of all those things I could really put it down to.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the point. I think it is the act of going, I'm going to do something about this. And it was all those things. Like,
Yeah, sure.
actually making a commitment, say, I can be better than this.
Yeah. And I guess to get to those points, you actually have to ride the low.
Big
And you
time.
just have to
Yeah.
hit the wall.
Yeah.
And be like... And actually, I weirdly have come to peace with that. When I have like a low time, I'm like, cool, I'm going to stay low.
Yeah.
And that's really weird to go.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, the longer I do this, I know I'm going to hit a wall. There'll be a day and I'm going to go, I need to change. This needs to change now. And then I do. And I always start the next day absolutely buzzing, and I'll ride a 6-month high. And you know, it's rare that the lows happen now just out of building the life you want to live, like just naturally out of that. But yeah, just kind of embracing the lows a little bit is kind of nice. It's kind of like, this is just life. We all have lows. I don't want to be like having a low, searching inspiring quotes on Instagram.
No, trying to force yourself
out of it. Just be like, I'm having a shit day today. Just going to ride it, and I'll put it out there, have conversations, just tell a few people, not to be like, hey, just want you to know I'm feeling shit today. Like, it's not that. It's just, if someone asks, are you okay? Just be like, nah, I'm feeling a bit rough today. Really, really, really changed me that.
Massively.
I think as a creative as well, the final thing that I definitely want to put into the podcast is the whole payment thing.
Okay.
Because everybody... I spent a lot of my time saying I'm not doing things for the money, I'm doing it for the creative and all that, and it's true. That's why we go into stuff, right? Yeah. But then there becomes a point where, like, for you to sustain it, there needs to be a conversation about money, and it doesn't have to be millions of pounds, it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of pounds, but you know, putting your rates up. I'm not doing it for the money, but if you put your rates up, it's going to take the pressure off a lot of things, and it helps you value you as well. So that was a big moment for me of just realising that I don't get a daily paycheck. I can't ride a wave on Monday knowing that for Monday I'm being paid specifically for that day's work, because it's not the industry I'm in, and I've chosen not to do day rates. I do project rates, so it's spread across those days. So you could technically say that Monday I am being paid in some way for that day, but there's not a set hourly thing in my mind, and I think that's the important thing. Is it's not there on paper. You could calculate it so that it looks like you are being paid for Monday. But in the creative world, generally, you're making decisions and you're making things that at some point hopefully will pay off.
Yeah,
and that's really hard mentally.
Yeah,
really hard. And I think that's probably the thing that's made me feel the loneliest. Right. And I think I've got to a point now where different things are happening. I've got a few different businesses on the go that's feeding into the pot. Yeah. And for the first time in my life this year, I don't check the prices of things. I was a northerner walking into a pub and going, 4 pints of this, please. I couldn't tell you how much that round costed. And it's not because I'm rolling it in any way, shape or form. I'm on like base rate, like lowest income stream for tax. Like that, I'm there. Yeah. But the freedom mentally to know that for the first time ever, there's at least a consistent amount of something that I could walk into a pub and buy 4 drinks for my mates. Yeah. And not be like, oh, can I, like, do I want to go down this rabbit hole? What if I'm paying for the next 3 rounds? I'm just like, worked hard to get to a point where I have a base level of income and there's a bit of comfort in there. If I had to pull a bit of money out of Made on the Road or whatever, it's there. Yeah. Just enjoy it. Like, it's just there, and for the first time ever, that freedom has felt really nice, and I'm genuinely not bothered about doubling my wage. I'm just not, because there's enough there that I can do those little things, but the daily income thing has. I finally got to a point where I realised I'm not in a job that I'm going to get paid every day, and as a creative, that's really hard. Yeah, and I just want everyone to know that is just a part of being a creative. If you're like working for music and you're like, I really need to make money, don't make a shift of like thinking I need to make my music make money, because you'll only go the opposite way. Yeah. And that's something I've really learned working with artists, is you do just unfortunately go the opposite way when you think like that. So just keep riding it. On average, it takes any business, like 2 years to start breaking even, and then from that point you then start making money. And that I found really interesting, because as a creative we're all setting up businesses. Yeah. So if you set up a business and you're looking to make money off your music within 2 years, like, just be prepared that you'll start to break even in 2 years. And then you start making an income, and it's probably going to be coming up to 5 years before you're like, I can live full time off it. But it's the same with your local coffee shop. They're paying off their debts for 5 years until they start making a profit. And a lot of the owners won't be taking any money from it because they can't afford to. No. And it's the same in any business. It's not that the music industry in that sense isn't too dissimilar to like the real world of every other business. Yeah. So as soon as that shifts, that like make peace with that, because that's going to really help. And then any opportunities that come in, you can try and, you want to make 12 grand a year, try and make 4 grand off gigs, make 4 grand off, releasing and making music, and make 4 grand off like other stuff, miscellaneous, like bit of merch here, bit of busking here, like whatever. Like then there's 12 grand in your pocket, and 4 grand's not ridiculous to think about, times 3. So just split it out, make peace with the fact that it's going to take a while to start breaking even, invest now. Your local coffee shop spent 100 grand probably putting that shop there. So have you spent 50 grand on your music to try and start breaking even? That's the question you've got to add. And if you don't have 50 grand, there's loads of funding out there. Start putting it out into the world. You might find someone that personally will sponsor you to make 4 tracks for 10 grand or whatever. So I just wanted to bring it full circle. If that's the reality of it. Yeah. And it's taken me 10 plus years to get to that point of even just thinking like, this is fine. It's fine. It's the industry I'm in. It is the way it is.
The money part of any, creative talk or happiness talk is an interesting element to bring, but you can't escape the fact, like, I am a believer in, to say something like money doesn't buy you happiness, that there's some play with that, but being worried about money, which is common for artists and creative, like, it's famously not a well-paying thing, so there's going to be financial struggle. That's not fun. Like, that isn't fun. So that's something you need to learn.
No, like, but buying around for your mates comfortably, feels bloody great. I tell you, after 10 years of not feeling like I could do it, it feels so nice to just be like, honestly, the first round's on me, what do you want?
Amazing.
And not worry about it. Like, the new car doesn't feel good. Well, obviously it does in a short-term way, but it doesn't deeply feel good. But if you can just get to a point with anything in your life where you can just go out, have a meal out with your friends, offer a drink here and there, like that's when life feels really good. And it's the simple things. That's like you say about the journey. Like, it is the simple things. If you can do that, if you can go busking for a day, and that's like a couple of rounds for your mates on the weekend, good for you. Like, just keep it smashing.
Yeah, that's a great place to wrap up. That's it's perfect. I mean, you know what? I go back to my journey to wrap this up. I find that when I write down things I'm grateful for, it's the most simple thing.
Yeah, always.
It's nothing bold and gravitas. It's just the most simple thing. It's people. It's my dogs. It's like a chat I had. It's like such real. Like look when you write it down, like this looks really boring, but no, it is just little
the
magical,
things.
beautiful things.
They really are, and they're the things that 10 years down the line, if you don't do them, that you'll be writing in your journal in 10 years. I wish I did this a little bit more. Wish I did that. I wish I just enjoyed that round of drinks with my mates, rather than trying to save up for 5 years to buy a car that nobody gave a shit about.
No.
That's just the way the world is. So.
I think that's a great bit of advice to wrap it up. George, thank you so much. I can't believe it's taken me this long, but I'm glad it happened.
Oh, same, mate. It's so nice to see you in person, because like we were saying last night, I feel like I know you so well.
I know.
And we've had many conversations but never met. And that is a beautiful thing about the internet, really. That is great. So thank you so much for having me. Thanks for making amazing coffee. Thanks for making amazing beats. And
you're very welcome.
Pleasure having you here. I'm glad we make it in person. So
awesome.
Next time,
thank you very much for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. George is such a great guy, a really great host, as it turns out as well. And he's just a super, super guy to talk to. I've got some really cool guests coming up for future episodes, so definitely subscribe and add this podcast to your favourites so that you can be the first to know as soon as those new episodes drop. So as ever, make great coffee, make great music, and make even better conversations. Take care.